Hey y'all, it's your boy Stone. So I was on another business trip, same rhythm, different city. I just walked outside of my hotel, taking in the air and mentally reviewing the day ahead, when I noticed a young black man standing off to my right. He was attending the same event that I was managing. Our eyes met briefly, and I offered a compliment to his shoes, some crisp, clean Jordans that told he moved with pride. He smiled and said thanks, and asked if I was headed to the same function. I told him I worked it. That got his attention. I could tell he was curious, surprised even, maybe not expecting someone like me to be in charge of things behind the scenes. I was waiting on an Uber, but traffic in the area had everything delayed by at least 10 minutes. I figured why wait when the venue wasn't that far. I offered to walk with him, and he agreed. We started to walk down the sidewalk, two strangers from different cities but somehow on the same frequency. During that walk, I shared that I ran a page on TikTok, one that focused on historical preservation through storytelling. This caught his interest instantly. He didn't hesitate before saying,
"My grandmother was a part of that history."
I asked him what he meant. He paused, then in a tone that balanced reverence and ache, he said his uncle had been murdered during the aftermath of the Tulsa race massacre, not by random vigilantes, but by police officers. According to his grandmother, they had gone house to house under the false pretense of interviewing witnesses. If a person had admitted to seeing anything, or if they even posed the slightest threat of truth, they were killed. His words hit me in the chest. I heard stories, but this direct bloodline memory, a torch of pain passed through generations. We continued to walk, but I was quiet for a bit, not out of belief, but out of respect, out of the weight of it. When we got to the venue, we dapped up, and we went our separate ways. But I couldn't shake that story. It followed me like a whisper through the conference halls. That night, back in my hotel room, I opened up my laptop and began to dig. I wanted to know if there was any record of any of this, any confirmation, any hidden documentation. And what I found was both horrifying and validating. There was no shortage of coverage on the Tulsa race massacre, but buried deeper than the headlines and censored curriculum were accounts that aligned disturbingly well with what the young man had shared. Survivors had long spoken of law enforcement not just failing to protect him, but actively participating in the violence, deputizing white mobs, turning away while homes were burned, and yes, there were chilling accounts of post-massacre patrols of officers rounding up black residents and the disappearances that were never investigated. The kind of justice that knocks on your door pretending to care, but then comes with a rope in its hand instead. The Tulsa race massacre wasn't just a riot. It was a state-sanctioned decimation of one of the most prosperous black communities in the United States. Greenwood, known as Black Wall Street, was a beacon of black excellence, a community built on entrepreneurship, mutual aid, and generational ambition. In the early summer of 1921, all of that was reduced to ash over the course of 18 hours. It started with the lie. A young black shoe shiner named Dick Rowland was accused of assaulting a white girl, Sarah Page, in an elevator. There was no evidence, but that didn't matter. The story spread, fueled by sensationalist newspapers, the same old American hunger for black downfall. A white mob gathered at the courthouse where Rowland had been held. Black residents, many of them veterans who served in World War I, came to protect him, and the first shot rang. What followed was more than a riot. It was a full-scale invasion. 35 blocks of Greenwood were looted and burned. Black residents were shot in the streets. Families fled into the woods with nothing but clothes on their backs. Reports say airplanes were used to drop firebombs on American soil against American citizens. By the end, over 300 people were believed to be dead. Thousands were left homeless, and the black wealth of an entire generation was wiped out. No one was held accountable. Insurance companies refused to pay claims. White looters kept stolen property in broad daylight. The police department claimed they did their best. History, for decades, said almost nothing. As I reflect on it all, I was struck by a parallel. 50 years after the massacre, in 1968, the federal government released a document that tried to explain the rising tensions in American cities, the product of a commission formed by President Lyndon B. Johnson to investigate the causes of race riots that had erupted throughout the 1960s. And the conclusion was painfully clear. And I quote, "Our nation is moving towards two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal." The Kerner Report didn't tiptoe around the truth. It laid blame on white racism, police brutality, and systemic neglect. It said media distorted black lives, that poverty wasn't accidental, and that inequality was intentional. It called for mass investment in jobs, housing, and education. It demanded police reform, better schools, and fair wages. But nothing changed. President Johnson ignored the report. Congress buried its recommendations, and the cycle continued. Tulsa and the Kerner Report were two chapters of the same book, one written in fire and gunpowder, and the other one in ink and truth. Both tell the story of a nation that punishes black advancement, then erases the evidence. These are reminders that systemic injustice doesn't always have to wear a hood. It often wears a badge or holds a pen. The story that young man told me wasn't just his family's trauma. It was a historical echo, and it reminded me why I do this work, why these stories must be told, because America doesn't forget what it's forced to remember. And now we remember, and we don't walk alone. If you like stories like this, be sure to follow. Let me know in the comments what you want to hear next. Until next time, it's your boy Stone.